Hello, Paso. This is Wicked Ink 915, tattoo artist out of the borderland. I specialize in custom tattoos and digital art for band logos, business logos, and personalized art. Find me on Instagram at Wicked Ink underscore 915 or under Wicked Vinyl Creation to schedule appointments for your next tattoo or to get your personalized merch such as stickers, t-shirts, mugs, and patches. Thank you and have a great day.
Welcome back to the BAMC Showcast. I have a special comic book Zoom episode today. I've been wanting to do this episode since I started 2 years ago. One of my personal favorite artists, he's best known as the interior artist of both La Muerta and the new Lady Gunfighter. Well, not so new anymore. She's working on book number 2 here. Joel
Number
Gomez,
3.
welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, man. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. It's good seeing you at Sworn Fest
Always
last
a good time.
earlier this month at in Arizona. That was quite the event, right?
Always is, man.
Yeah, it's a
Great
lot
for
of
every
fun.
year.
Yeah, it seems like it's a really cool turnout. It's fun meeting. For me, I enjoy meeting up with all the people who read our books and such because then it's something I can kind of carry with me through the months as I work from home, just drawing the pages. Because then you're like, "Oh, yeah, so and so mentioned they really like this or that," and it just becomes, the inspiration for putting your best foot forward, you know?
Awesome, man. Can't wait to see what Lady Gunfighter has in store for us this year. I
Yeah, it's
I
a
said to Mike, I was like, "Hey, man, I got a bone to pick with you, bro. What's up with no La Muerta this year?"
Oh, yeah, that's part of it was my schedule, I guess, like, at some point, they're pretty Coffin Comics is pretty lax with the schedule, and I've been really lucky to work with them because 'cause they're really easygoing, they never really pressure me too much, but it feels like, with Gunfighter, this chapter, which is chapter 3, I really w I don't see that many now there seems to be more, but when I first started Gunfighter with Coffin Comics, there weren't too many Western comics out, and, I don't know, I was really into the premise. I used to really love this game called Red Dead Redemption, and there yeah, it was really cool, right? And so there was a lot of elements in that game that I felt I could tap into for this book, and it's been a real treat. I've been trying my best to make this current chapter, which is 3 that I'm wrapping up, just really stand out. I've been busting my ass to really try new stuff in it and just make it cool for people to really want to check out the new story. And I feel I'm a little more familiar with the characters in this world that Mike and Brian have created, and so I'm doing my best to honor the written word that I get and just make it as kick-ass as possible so that more people pick it up, and I don't know, it just becomes more of a common staple that, it doesn't seem as odd to have out there. Maybe more people wanna see more issues, and we keep going, you know?
Yeah. So when you and Mike came up with this, well, Mike's the writer, you're the interior artist. Was Red Dead
Correct.
Redemption, was that one of the main influences
For
initially?
me, absolutely, like, I when Brian and Mike pitched me the idea for the book, I immediately was like, "This," and I I told him about it, and I sent him a bunch of stills, from the game, and, Mike was really into it. There was a lot of really cool stuff that came from it. There was this movie, I mean, it wasn't even that great of a movie, but it was directed by a guy who I like. His name was, Gore Verbinski, and, he recently just did a movie, oh gosh, I forgot what it was called, but, he did this particular movie, Lone Ranger, and it was kind of forgettable. It had Johnny Depp in it, right?
I remember that. I was in the hospital when I
Um,
watched that.
yeah, and so the thing about it was that, like, there was just such a really cool, look to the film, and it had, like, so much texture, and it had a really gritty, nasty looking Old West in the movie, right? And there was something about it that really spoke to me because I thought visually as a comic, there's a lot to latch onto that, you're drawing pages, visually dense, a lot of atmosphere, like gritty, nasty, dirty people because nobody's taking showers. Like they had an element to it that really I never saw anywhere else until I saw Red Dead Redemption. And in that game, it was pretty much a very similar vibe where you really got a sense of the Old West. And I enjoyed it so much because I mean, aside from the old 800s pictures that you see when you Google something from the Old West. Those are somewhat polished and doctored up to be a certain way, where even then photography wasn't as common as it is now, where, people were always on their best behavior, looking good and they're prim and proper, you know? and to get, like, an actual shot of how it was back then, was always interesting, and to me, like I said, that again, that terrible not so great movie, I should say, Lone Ranger by Gore Verbinski really gave you that look, that vibe, where even the women were like, "Oh my gosh, this chick's nasty, like, what is going on?" You know, and, there was something about it that felt real, and I think Red Dead Redemption even pushed the envelope further for me like that. It was almost like seeing Mad Max, you know? You see how gritty and nasty everybody looks, and it's just part of the environment, you know, like and so it was like that for me with the Old West, and I solicited Mike and Brian, "Hey, what do you think about this? This stuff could be really gritty," and I already knew Coffin had a particular edge to the way they did their comics, and they have a I don't know, they have a style, a brand to their identity, and I thought this would fit perfectly, and so, of course, Mike was cool with it, and Brian was cool with it, yeah, so they were really into the idea of it, which was great for me because 'cause I'm a huge freaking fan of Red Dead Redemption anyway, but by the way, the, Gore Verbinski new movie that he just did was called Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die, so huge fan of that guy, but, anyway, the Lone Ranger movie, not so great, but visually, like, the textures and the atmosphere that it provided were really fantastic, the costumes. Those are all kinds of weird things that, as a comic book artist, you latch on to find, things to be inspired by and to pull from because those are your bread and butter, you know, you have to develop a unique quality as to what, "Oh, well, that's a Joel Gomez page," or, "Oh, he's drawing that book," and that it adds to the identity of who that artist is because of how they handle the art duties, you know?
Yeah, like I said, you definitely have a unique style. For those who never read a Joe book here, he has a very grimy and gritty style. Think 80s Batman, Ninja Turtles, but dirtier, pretty much. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, all of that stuff is, it's unique to me because it's like, I don't know, when I think about, walking down the street in my area, there's nothing's as clean as and pristine, and it's even like in the Star Wars movies. Everything has like a grit, a texture, the labels are worn off, the paint's chipped, the helmet's dented, that kind of shit that adds a little more life and some interest to the character or the ship, um, and it leaves somebody to imagine something, and as an artist, you go like, "Cool," that because half the job is done if someone's like, "Oh, shit, that guy looks like he went through some hell," and you go, "Perfect, that's what I need," that guy needs to look like he went through hell, and so all of it to communicate an idea or to, really create some sense of identity for people to, like, latch on to. Mhm.
So I know you've been drawing a long time, but can you give us like a brief rundown? Like how many years you've been drawing? Like when you first picked up pencils as a kid, when you got into the hobby, and then when
Yeah.
you said, okay, I want to make a run at this. I want to do this for real. Like, how did that go
Yeah.
down for you?
I'd say, like most people, you develop it early on, drawing in school, and once I saw I had an aptitude for it, I was like, "Oh, cool." And so in high school, I was like one of 2 or 3 people in my class that were like, "Oh, that's the drawer," like, in quote unquote, like, you were labeled as that guy who was pretty good at the thing, and it's like all things in life you figure out early, "Oh, people like when I do this, so I'm gonna try and do more of it." And, so in high school, I saw that I had, you know, like an aptitude or a proficiency towards it, so it's something that I was interested in, and I grew up on comics, so I was I was really into that idea, so I drew a lot of that, and, then, of course, immediately after high school, all of that stuff kinda faded away, and, I was into partying and girls and, just life, I was drawing kinda took a back seat, and, somewhere in my mid-20s, I started trying to pick it back up, taking classes at at the art center in Pasadena, and then also, you know, uh, kinda supplementing those classes with at the time, there were several junior colleges where people who were in the animation industry would sometimes teach on the side. So you would hear, "Hey, so and so from Disney also teaches this figure drawing class at this one place," and you'd be like, "Oh shit!" So it was like finding out like there's some really good, dojo karate master at this place. Like you can learn from him, And so to me, I would seek out whoever these people were that were really good at figure drawing and stuff like that. And so half art center, half, junior college stuff. And between that and I was waiting tables at restaurants and somewhere in my late 20s, I met somebody from Top Cow Productions and I went there and I was kind of an intern, an unpaid intern for the marketing department. And I obviously wasn't trying to do marketing. It was just me trying to get my foot in the door to meet artists and at the time it's kind of what I did. And they had a stable of artists there and Mike Turner was there and Dave Finch would come in and out and who else was there? There was a guy named Kuchad who was doing Witchblade. And so yeah, I was kind of popping in and bugging those guys and I never really took it too seriously. I was just excited to be around these really awesome creative people and soak it all in. And long story short, I got into backgrounding. I quit my job as a waiter and went all in on the idea of backgrounding. And it was just something that came really easy for me. And it gave me more opportunity to be around these really, really talented people that they were always all pretty good. I was around Mark Silvestri, Mike Turner, and Francis Manapul and Kucha, and I would help these guys on the books, just doing backgrounds and making sure the books weren't late, and I was still kind of having fun, having a good time. I wasn't really like busting my ass going for it. I was just having it, anytime I was working on these books, I would make sure to bring whatever I was working on the side and share it to see if I can get some pointers and some tips. And so that was always nice. And that kind of thing led me to working at Aspen Comics for a spell with Mike Turner and some of the guys he had working there. And then I think it was like a LA Comic Convention I met Jim Lee, and he was looking at my portfolio, and I was a huge fan of that guy. I still am. I mean, he's a great guy, and he offered me the opportunity to work at WildStorm. So I think in like 2006, oof, really dating myself here. 2006, I headed over to WildStorm in San Diego, and I was a penciler there, and while there. Did my first full books, which I looking back on it, I still don't think I was that ready for.
Yeah, what title was this? The first full book?
So at Wildstorm, I started working first on Nightmare on Elm Street.
Your arts or at this point, or
Yeah. I was doing pencils for a book called Nightmare on Elm Street, issue 4.
okay,
They were doing licensed books at the time, so I did that, and then I did a Texas Chainsaw Massacre issue number 8. It was like the origin story of Leatherface. And so I was bouncing around in between some of the licensed stuff, and then I got to work on Wetworks, Will Fortasio's book there. I think I did like 5 or 6 issues of Wetworks, and then I worked on a book, another licensing thing, Lost Boys, the comic book. So it was like the Adventures of the Frog Brothers. And it followed the two main characters from the movie, the old movie, The Lost Boys,
ah,
Corey Haim and Corey Feldman. And it was really neat in the way that they presented this whole thing of how, ever since at the end of the movie, they continued to hunt vampires and discover that vampires had like crept into every aspect of our government. So, like, even senators and congressmen and even the president at one point was like, they were vampires. And so the Frog Brothers were there to, you know, destroy the vampires or whatever. But it was weird because, like, the way the writer of the series did it was, like, by the end of the series, it was all sort of told through narration, and you could see they were meant to be flashback sequences, sort of, but by the end of the book, you got the impression that maybe they were lying, that it was just the Frog Brothers telling a story, a yarn about all of this stuff, exaggerating, you know
How
what I
long did
mean?
this one go? 'Cause I know they've done several Lost Boys like stop and starts.
Yeah, this
How
one was a 4-issue miniseries.
Okay.
So it was meant as just a like a beginning, like it was always intended to just be 4 issues. Um, so it was kinda cool, that was fun, and, then after that, I worked on, at the time, there's a huge video game property that just came out, and I did a couple of fill-in pages for one of the issues of Gears of War.
Oh, nice.
So, yeah, that was pretty fun, I got to do that, and then, worked on the last book there, I think it was called Authority: The Lost Year, and, so that was, like, I wanna say, like, 3 issues, 2 or 3 issues, and, that was kinda interesting working with Brian Stelfreeze on that, and, yeah, so then by this time, I think I wanna say it was, like, 2010, 20 yeah, maybe 2010, 2011, WildStorm shut down, they kind of moved Jim to LA, and they just kinda closed the doors at the studio, and so that was the end of my run at WildStorm, and so for a couple of years, I kinda floated around doing a lot of conventions, and, at the time, it was interesting because, like, the Marvel movies are just taking off, and so I would say for a good 2 well, maybe, yeah, 2012 to 2014, I was just doing conventions. So, it was huge time, like, there were tons of people going to all these conventions, like, the Avengers had just come out, and it was like, everybody was in the comics all of a sudden, you know what I mean? So you could really, you could make a living just selling prints and doing commissions at a convention, so I did that for several years.
So you noticed they have an uptick in business once Avengers came out?
For sure, there were, there were the normal comic book fans that everyone knows, and then there was, like, a whole slew of, like, I'd say the normal convention fans were about 35%, maybe a little bit more of the audience, and then there was, like, this 65% or more of people who were like, "Wow, look at this. Oh, man, this is amazing," and you could tell they wouldn't go to conventions or this was their first one, and, they were just and at the time, prints and, metal prints, all that kinda stuff was just people really buying them up. It was a huge market for that stuff, and as a as an artist working from home and there were more things being available and accessible to people like that, besides Kinko's, because up until that point, people were just getting shit printed up at Kinko's, right? And now there were these services and places that were making really cool looking images at a decent cost, and now they're even printing them on metal, and, like, it was, like, evolving, like, the way that, people were presenting themselves at conventions was changing, and it was like there was more eye candy for people who were in the 20 to $60 range, of a purchase to buy, there was more things for them to choose from, and so it made it very easy if you could latch onto something and at the time, like, "Oh, shit, I know this is really exciting and people were really, into this, it's popular, I'll do a print of this." You know what I mean? And so you would do that, and sometimes you could sell, like, up to 20 or 30 of those particular prints at a show of just that one image, and you go, "Huh, okay, so what if I have 10 to 12 different images on my table?" Now, let's say of those 10 or 12 images, let's say 8 of them sell, like, 6 to 8 copies per show, right? Now, all of a sudden, include, like, doing some commissions, and all of a sudden, you're making a pretty good, nice little chunk of change at a 2-day, 3-day convention, you know what I mean? Um, but, like, all that kinda stuff, it kinda the bottom kinda fell out, and, it spiked really fast, but it also then kinda came down pretty quickly, like, I'd say 2016, 2017, something like that. It started to slow down a little bit, and maybe people were tired of prints or they don't they only have so much space on their wall, whatever, I don't know what the reason being, but, it the market changed and conventions kinda died down a little bit, you know? But in, I'd say, the end of 2014, early 2015, I met Brian Pulido, and, I met him at a show in Arizona. They had a convention in this stadium where the Cardinals, Arizona Cardinals, usually play. So it's this really neat kind of setting. And he came by and he looked at my stuff and he's like, "Man, I really love this stuff. I'd really love to pitch you this idea I'm working on." And I said, "Oh wow, that sounds amazing." And so I gave him my contact info. And like a week later, he reached out to me and he told me, "Hey, this is the idea. It's this book called La Muerta." And he had a pitch Bible, like a whole like I don't know PDF of images and like little blurbs for each character and what they were about. And the guy, it was interesting. There's a phrase. It's like he had all the groceries. All I had to do was cook. You know what I mean? Like he had the he had the inspiration. He had a bunch of images that kind of gave you the impression of what he was going for with the look of the book. And I think through that, it made it really easy for me to understand the tone and the vibe of it. And so I was like, all right, cool. I was like, this looks great. And so he then said, "Okay, well, that sounds awesome. Here's a schedule. Here's what I'm looking at, the timeline and stuff." And I was like, "Oh, cool." And at the time, I had been working on a licensing project for DC Comics. It was called The World According to Batman, and then another one called The World According to the Joker. And there were like these little hardcover books that they were selling at bookstores, like brick and mortar bookstores. And gave you a little background about the characters and um, their tools and their hideouts and what they use, and they're a fun little book. I was like an all ages kind of book. So I was doing those with them, and I told Brian like, "Hey, you know what? I won't be available until this time because I have to wrap these things up." And so he gets back to me and he says, "Ah, it's too bad. I really I can't budge on this timeline. It has to be at this time. This would have been cool. I'm so sorry." And I was like, "Oh, oh shit, okay." And I was like, "Damn." And so, like, I went back to doing those books for DC licensing, and, the whole time I'm like, "Well, shit, man, like, I didn't gosh, man, that sucks." I knew him as the Lady Death guy, and he was really nice to me when I met him at the convention in Seattle, I mean, in Arizona, and I was kicking myself 'cause, like, "Man, should I have lied and said, like, no, fucking I'll do it. Let's go,' you know what I mean? But, I didn't, and I just felt bad, and I was like, "Dang it." I was like, "Well, there goes that opportunity," you know? And so, I don't know, I figured I'm, like, a couple weeks away from wrapping up on this licensing job for DC Comics, and I get an email. This is, like, a month after we had first spoke, and, he's like, "Hey, it's Brian, if you're still interested, like, you know, the book's available. If something didn't work out, and I've had to move the schedule around a little bit." And I was like, "Oh shit!" I was like, "Yes, absolutely, for sure." And so then I did some test pages for he and Mike to look over. They checked them out. They liked them, and away we go. I get the script, and the book was broken down into two 48-page chapters. And so, like, each chapter, like, it was they had a full-on, like, movie script for this thing. So, like, they the I read the whole thing. It was 96 pages, and it was really cool, man. It was, like, a really cool revenge flick. Like, it just read so nice. It was really tight, and, I wasn't thinking of it as a comic. I was thinking of it as, like, a TV show or movie, like, from what I was reading. I was like, "Man, this is cool," and I was just flipping through these pages really quickly. And I said, "Yeah, so that's the script." And I was like, "Oh, so this is just the comic script?" And he's like, "Well, yeah, it's, we've just finished adapting it into panels because apparently, it wouldn't say panel 1, panel 2, panel 3, you know what I mean?" Um, so I really like the vibe of it, and, best I could best I could recall, like, I kept thinking about the movie The Crow, with Brandon Lee, and,
Also have
so
some Crow influence on that. Mm.
yeah, for sure, absolutely, especially, like, from Brian and Mike, and, so, yeah, man, so I just went to town on it, and I try to I wasn't again, I don't know that it's always weird because, like, as a comic book artist, as soon as you work on something new, there's, like, this weird thing where it's like starting a new job. right? And you don't know your coworkers. You're just meeting them, you're understanding their tendencies. You know, they like their music this loud or this quiet or this type of music, or don't talk to them when they're doing this, whatever. It's like I wasn't terribly familiar with Brian and Mike, their work process. It wasn't that difficult, but more importantly, I wasn't familiar with the character. So, I think it took me a while to really get an idea of who she was and, like, draw her in a way where it consistently felt right in my mind, you know what I mean? Because it's like, well, how does she stand? Like, what's the face she makes when she's just, like, kind of pissed, but not, like, really super angry or and there were things about her that I needed to familiarize myself with, and so I felt like with each chapter of the book, like, her identity became so much more solid in my mind to who she was, you know what I mean? And, I didn't I think those first chapters are great, but there's always like this, you you're always thinking of, "Oh, this could have been like, I could have done this better, or I could have done that better." But, hindsight is always what they say, 2020, and it's like, you get that vibe where you're like, "Ah, man, thinking back on how she is, I would want her to do this, or I wanna draw her like this," and so but it was great, and I didn't know Brian very well or Francisca, and, in the beginning, I mostly just emailed with him directly, and, it was cool, but I also I wasn't really dialed into the level of, um how this guy builds, right?
Yeah.
His world building,
Who was
ability.
playing, right?
Brian Pulido, because at this time I hadn't really, like, I would rarely ever interact with Mike, but, I this was like chapters 2 and 3 of La Muerta, and it's when it started to really click in my head of like, "Wow, this guy Brian, like, he really has, like, all these fucking ideas that it's almost like layers of an onion where all these things kinda connect and intersect here and there." Like, "Oh, you could see how this character could kinda dive into this part of the world," or you could almost see this universe he was, like, expanding into, you know what I mean? And I was starting to go, "Oh, that's super cool, like, wow, okay," and once I could see the gears, of seeing, how it worked, the inner workings of all of this stuff, it became even more fascinating to me because then it just didn't feel like a one and done type of idea for the book. Because like, in the first chapter, I wasn't sure if they'd ever gonna do another one, you know what I mean? Like, hell, I'm not even sure if they knew, they probably were hoping, but they thought, "Well, let's see how it does. Let's see how people support it or not." You know what I mean? I feel like it's grown since then. Like, there's more people who enjoy the book, you know?
I say it definitely has, 'cause I remember in Theme Fest 2019, it was
Yeah.
my first big Coffin event, and I remember I met a lot of people who were, like, lifelong Lady Death fans. They had never read La Muerta, and I've seen over
Right.
the years how the diehards have shifted towards La Muerta more and more.
Yeah, it's amazing, and I think, it's all it's all stems from the idea that Mike and Brian had where I mean, it's almost simplistic, but it's just such a durable character the way that they created her, and it allows you as an artist to like really put her through the ringer or interpret her in a bunch of different ways because the very nature or the core of who she is never dilutes. Like it's always potent. It's always through each story that she's that same character, and it's so badass. It's like a simplistic or it's like really genius in its simple design because it's like, oh shit, she's always just this certain kind of character, and it's affected the way I approach her because I feel like of all the characters in the Coffin verse, she has more of I don't know, a different demeanor. Like she's kind of a badass. I mean, a lot of all of the female characters in the Coffin universe are badasses, but for some reason with Maria Diaz, she's just not like she's not your typical type of hero. You know what I
She's
mean?
more modern. I mean, she wasn't born in hell. She wasn't medieval. She didn't. I mean,
Yeah, yeah, you're right,
now you
and I
never said
think
this, but it was an obvious Crow influence, and you
mhm,
never said East LA, but it was a very distinct East LA vibe in the beginning.
absolutely, because I thought that's what we were going with, and then the vibe and some of the visuals I had received in the pitch deck that Brian and Mike had created initially for the character, and there was an energy to it that had that vibe, an East LA vibe to it, and I was like, "That's fucking brilliant, that's perfect, it makes sense," you know what I mean? She's a Mexican American, she's probably in LA, um, and in those early days, I don't think, anything was as solidified in her backstory. Maybe it was, but I wasn't as aware of it at the time, and through time, I think with how long she's been around and with each chapter, it feels like at some point, I think Brian, when is was it maybe 3 years ago, he finally came out and said, "Okay, she's based in Phoenix."
Yeah.
And so I was like, "Okay, that's cool too," you know, and so it didn't change by then, it wouldn't really change anything that we had established in the way the character looked or in the setting or it was still La Muerta, it was still Maria Diaz in the way that we, show her. But, yeah, it's a really cool character, and I think, I've learned a lot just by working on that book. I would say around chapter 4 and 5 is when I started to interact more with Mike, when I realized, "Hey, like, I'm still here. We're still doing this thing together, and I'm fucking having a blast. Like, how can we make this better?" And, I started trying to reach out more with Mike and like, "Well, what did you think about this?" And so I started first by reflecting on the prior books, right? And I would say like, "Well, what about this? Like, what did you think of this? How did you oh, yeah, that looked cool. I like how you did that." Or, "Well, I mean, I'm not like looking for compliments. Was there something you were imagining that I didn't share there?" And he's like, "No, that was pretty close. I would have maybe done this or this." I'm like, "Oh, okay, cool. I didn't
This
even
is
think about."
chapter 4-ish when you had that
Yeah,
conversation.
yeah. So, and my intention with that was to really just, understand who the man is behind the writing so that when he says a certain phrase or certain words, I can better understand what his intention is. You know what I mean? Because I thought, well, wouldn't it be great if we're almost like one cohesive unit where the writer and artist almost feel like the same thing? You know what I mean? And I was just trying to pick his head a little more and understand his tastes. You know what I mean?
So prior to
Um,
that, like when you said like the way she talks, the way she walks, the look she makes, that was all you, or you just came up with it on your own, or did you say, hey, my, or did you have any checks and balances? Like, okay, I like this look, I don't like that one, or was it just
oh, for sure. I think a lot of that stuff came from the idea that I was not as competent or as strong an artist early on in the chapters. I would say it really didn't start coming together for me in a strong way till about chapter 4, 5. But I was still trying to nail down the look of the character. I would get I'll get feedback back from Brian where it's like, "Hey, could you make her look a little nicer here? She looks a little too ragged, or she looks a little masculine here in this image." And I was struggling with how to depict her in the face paint. Should I be blacking that in, or should I let the colorist do it? And there was a lot of like hemming and hawing over how to handle those aspects of it. You know what I mean? Um, and there was a lot of trial and error. You know what I mean? And again, I don't think I was as strong of an artist then as I am now, or I'm a little stronger now for sure. But like, I was still learning my way through a lot of that stuff early in those days. And it's crazy because when you think about it, it's like even up till now, like I've done probably I want to say close to like 600 pages of sequential art for Coffin Comics. Um, and it was
I
like
own 12 of them. I'd say
exactly, exactly, right? Yeah, you do own 12. Um, and it's interesting to me because, like, you know, everyone learns differently. Everybody processes the information in their own way. And, I thought at the beginning of this journey at Coffin, I had a certain opinion like, oh, I need to work on this and work on this, and I'm good. And you fast forward to now and I look back and I go like, "Oh, man, I was so way off." Like, I needed a lot more work than that, and with comics and drawing, it's like you can't hide, like, people see it in the art, and it's right there in front of you, and so I'm grateful for the opportunity, but I'm also a much stronger artist for those experiences, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I was gonna say, in the creative process, I mean, obviously a lot more goes into an interior, but compare the difference between like doing it in Lamort's interior versus like a regular Lady Death cover or whatever, or say a Batman cover or something, whatever you're commissioned to. Like,
Yeah,
what's the difference, or what
for
do you think is
me,
the process?
like, doing an interior page, I think is a lot more, it's a lot more challenging because you're trying to set a bunch of images, you're trying to establish a series of images on a page, in a way that the viewer can move from image to image, and create a flow. Like, so, let's say in this imaginary page we're talking about, there's four panels on this page, and in panel one you have somebody punching somebody else, that you need to have that make the reader go on to the next panel. So, okay, so then the person getting punched, maybe they're falling back towards panel 2 so that the viewer is just naturally inclined to slide over to panel 2, and panel 2 has something else happen where a car is taking off and it's zooming down the street towards the viewer. So then you go, "All right, well, then let's make that panel have a little bit of a bird's eye view so that we're looking down on the car and it's still coming towards the viewer, but now it's directing the viewer's eye to the bottom left part of the page." So you're creating a series of images that you want to depict the action in the story, but at the same time, um, move them through the page at a pace that makes them flip right through it. And what the depressing part about that to me is that, like, because I mean, I'll buy certain comics and just, oh, I love this art, I want to go get that collected edition of such and such, and I'm gonna flip through it, and I'll flip through those pages, and I'll spend, I don't know, 4 or 5 seconds on a page and flip to the next page, right? And it's like, that's just natural. That's what everybody does. It takes me like a day and a half, 2 days to draw to draw that page, and it's like, but I think that's the beauty and the challenge of it, is like creating these interesting shots. How much real estate do you give each shot? Like, who gets the biggest panel on the page? Why? And like, how cool is that panel going to be versus the other panels? And it's like, understanding that language, and it's like storyboarding for a movie or something, and I think, inherently, that just seems so much more challenging, but I love that part of it, and when it comes together, and anytime I take my original art to a show and people are flipping through the folders, it always gives me, like, a huge relief and kind of a joy that there's people that just go like, "Man, I don't even know what this is, like, this is so cool, like, how did you do that?" And I'm like, "Oh, shit, that's awesome!" Because I've had people buy original art from my folder of Muerta pages without ever even reading the book, and it's just because they appreciate the craftsmanship of the page. And it makes me feel great because it's like, I'll spend hours on that stupid shit, and I'll be like, "Oh my god, that guy's face looks stupid. I have to redraw that." And so then I redraw it, I'm like, "Why? No one cares." And it's like, "No, people do care." At the end, you'll see people enjoying it, and it's like, that's why you do it. And I think, to me, inherently, pages may take longer, and I think if you're doing, like, a cover or, like, an illustration or a pinup, it is challenging. It can be just as challenging as a sequential art page, but for different reasons. It's like, how pretty can you make that girl's hair? Does she have a really pretty face? Is that background really pristine? And so, like, you're distilling everything about the book into one single image, into a movie poster, for lack of a better description. And so, you want to represent the characters and the premise of the story as best you can to make someone go like, "Oh man, this looks crazy. There's some crazy shit going on here. I need to buy this book." And so, encapsulating all of that into single image can be just as challenging as doing a sequential page, but to me, the sequential art is really where it's at, to me, the magic. Because if, you can get somebody to want to revisit and look at those pages and hang out and just study the hell out of those drawings, then it's their time is spent immersed in this place and moving them away from whatever their doldrums of the day are, and they get to just like escape for a while and just live in this place you've created. And that's exciting to me. That's a lot of fun. And that's why I think I like sequential art more than doing covers or pinups. I mean, they're fun too, but um, there you have more opportunities to pull somebody in with the number of images that are within a sequential art page. You know.
Got you. I also was asked about the cover arts. When you do the mystery envelopes or just regular
Hmm.
covers in general, but I
Hmm.
also noticed the mystery envelopes. Does Brian give you a lot of leeway? Or does he want certain themes? Like, for example, I have the Buccaneer one, the Pirate Lady
Oh
Death,
yeah,
and
yeah,
the Morta, the Wasteland. I mean,
yeah,
I don't remember what books they were because I bought them. They were mystery envelope, but I bought them. Actually, it was a Black
yeah.
Friday sale. I think it was 2023. But what inspired those, or did Brian to say, "Hey, go nuts, do your thing," or
It was funny. There was a time when I was just trying out all kinds of weird shit for the characters, and I really I love the idea of reinterpreting a character, right? And so I done like this pirate looking Lady Death, Victorian style. I mean, not Lady Death, La Muerta. I did a pirate inspired La Muerta. All these like futuristic cyberpunk La Muerta, and he was digging all of these, and I think they just went in line with this idea that he might have been kicking around in his head at the time anyway of like a multiverse, like variations on his characters. And I think we were just on the same page because my concepts were working. And he was like, dude, like, keep these coming. And I was like, okay, cool.
so with that being said, you know how we have a Lady Death and then we have Empress Death.
Right.
Could
Right.
Lamorta sometime down the road have like an evil doppelganger
Well, that's funny.
besides Roja, obviously?
Yeah, that's kind of what Roja became, but she became like kind of a hit. I think
She did
people really like that character.
because the prints were awesome, and like and then the book came off, and then I don't want to spoil it, but after that first, I was like, oh, that's it, you know. But then
Yeah,
they
well,
brought her back, you know.
yeah, she's apparently like they've got some ideas about that character, and I think it's fantastic. She's really cool. I think they're exploring ideas for La Muerta, and I know that there's a version. As soon as I'm done with this gunfighter, I'm jumping right into her new chapter of La Muerta, and it could go one of two ways, but either way seems to be presenting a variation in the way that the book has been done. So I think that's exciting for readers and people who've been keeping up with the book, and I'm excited for it. At Swornfest, I got to chat it up a bit with Mike about it and his ideas, and I don't do as many shows as I used to, and I used to sometimes run into him at the Arizona shows because I would come out once a year during Phoenix Fan Fusion, or I'm not sure what the show is called, but I would come out and have a dinner with him or whatever and chat with him and Brian. But it's been a few years since I've been back out there, except for Swornfest. And so at Sworn, he told me some ideas that he was kicking around for the book, and he said that he was in touch base with Brian on it later. And I said, "Oh, well, Brian told me about this other idea," and he's like, "Oh, that's cool." And so he said, "Well, shoot, I'm aware of both things. I'm not sure which way he's leaning, but what do you think of either one of those things?" And I said, "Those sound awesome, dude. This is really cool." And so I'm excited to bring a version of that to the page. Is all I can say.
Now you keep saying it could go one of two ways, and that makes me think of Lady Death versus Hell Witch when he let the fans vote on it. Do you foresee something like that happening in the future in the La Morta with this idea or maybe a different one down the road?
I think it's well, I think it's more about um, the general one one particular thing plays into something I'm currently working on in Lady Gunfighter uh, as a short story at the end of this book. And then the other idea is something that kind of keeps in line with the current La Muerta storyline. So I guess that's all I can say really, because it's
Okay.
like two different types of directions. But I don't think it's still the same character, and nothing drastic is happening. It's just the premise of what happens is different, I guess.
Well, you also put that Lady Death she short there in that last one. That
That's
kinda
right.
came out of left field, but that was pretty cool.
Yeah, it was La Muerta She, and it was Billy Tucci's She, which was pretty cool.
His baby.
And yeah, it's his baby, and it was kind of cool because like I just remember, I mean, shit, man, he had like Frank Frazetta paint a picture of her, and I was like, wow, he got like Frank Frazetta to paint this character, and like Frazetta's like a, a fantasy illustrator god, you know what I mean? So yeah, so having her in that world with La Muerta was pretty cool. Um, and I didn't really get to interact with Billy much. I got some feedback on some of the stuff I was doing, and he's like, "Oh, just fix this little thing here and this," and he's like, "Looks great," and I was like, "Oh, that's awesome." So it was cool. I liked the idea of what La Muerta and she how they kind of intersected. It made sense because both characters are very strong, like I guess alpha kind of leader type chicks, and so there had to be a way where it made sense, and I think that book or that particular short story made it so that they both had their moments.
This is a very specific question I was told to ask you. What are
Oh
your
shit,
favorite tools to draw with and why?
that's interesting. I I'm old school traditional artist, pencils, pens, ink, whiteout. So I use a lead holder, which is like a kind of a fatter lead kind of technical thing. But then when I'm doing tighter pencils, I'll use a technical pencil, which is an '07 lead holder. And I used to go to this point where I would vary the lead size. So like sometimes I would use '07, and then for thinner lines I'd use like '05, and then '03 for really far background stuff. And I haven't been doing that as much because it's a pain in the ass, but I use a technical pencil, '07, a lead holder. I use Pigmamicron pens, and I use various Kuretake brush pens. And I also use Pentel brush pens for my large black areas. And I'll open up the pens for the Pentel brush pens, empty out all of the ink that's in there, and then just fill them with India ink on a regular basis as I go. And that's what I use.
Yeah. Are there any other concepts of the characters Lamorta or Lady Gunfire that you'd like to explore in the future that haven't been mentioned or you maybe haven't pitched to Brian yet or
Um, what's interesting, I think like I feel like with La Muerta, if there's ever anything, I always kind of hit Mike up and say, "Hey, let's try this. Let's do this." And with Lady Gunfighter, I mean, honestly, I did a commission for somebody at Hornfest, and only until I did the commission, I was like, "Oh shit, this would be cool." Is like Lady Gunfighter and like was it Gunslinger Spawn?
okay.
Um, I thought that something like that would be really cool. Like, or then that got me thinking, like, shit, wouldn't it be really cool if we had like La Muerta and like Punisher? Some sort of crossover that would kind of like pair either of the characters up with something similar but not completely similar to them, you
Like
know?
Brujo and Punisher collide, huh?
Ooh, yeah, that would be really cool. See, that's what I'm talking about. That kind of stuff, that kind of synergy that where you could see little things happening on the phrase of these kind of mashups or crossovers where, you know, that would be like a really interesting kind of situation, you know what I mean? That would be really cool. We had at one point we had a I don't know, we may revisit it one day, but we had like a Brujo. I mean not Brujo, I mean we had a Loco, uh, one shot.
Oh, you local. That's right. I meant to say local. I'm not Brujo. I meant to say local.
Loco, yeah, yeah. We had a Loco one shot, and it was pretty cool. Like, his backstory as like a luchador, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, and we kind of played around with it, but I think in the end they kind of postponed it, and I still think it'd be pretty cool. I think the character's a lot of fun. I don't know if can you imagine? Do you think you'd read like a full 48-page story of Loco?
I
Yeah,
would.
that's kind of cool. Yeah,
Yeah, I think I got the Richard Ortiz cover. The one local cover I have is Richard Ortiz when he's got the Uzis.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. He's a badass dude. I like that character. There's something about him that would really be interesting to see them kind of develop further. You know?
'Cause I'm not trying to compare Lady Death to Blade because 'cause they're not similar at all, but when I see, the layer shots of her and Lamorta hanging out I'm sorry, him and Lamorta hanging out in the lair or whatever in the hideout with the
Hmm.
car, it kinda
Oh
gives me
yeah,
the Wesley Snipes Blade vibes a little bit, so
With
like,
La
that's
Muerta or Loco?
well, no, well, just the whole vibe, like, they have the car at their base, their little
Oh
hideout, they're
yeah,
working on their
yeah, yeah,
stuff.
yeah. Well, it's cool because like the thing I like about Loco is that they call him like Barrio Batman, right? And like his manservant is even called Alfredo, which is like Alfred, you know, the Batman, right? And the unique thing about the character was that the way they designed him is that he would have like these, I don't know, like these secret storehouses throughout the city. And so in each one of these places, he'd have like a car and like a cache of weapons and like whatever. And so it was like a really cool kind of idea for the character to always have some place he could go and hide out and grab a stash of his guns and whatever. You know what I mean? And I really like the energy that character had. So who knows? I mean, he's a lot of fun, and I'm sure he'll pop up again from time to time.
I
You
know
know?
he's a Bad Girl Comics, but Mike Morg seems to be working just fine, so I don't see why, Loco
Yeah,
wouldn't.
that's a good point. I didn't even think about that. Yeah, Mike Morg is he's pretty popular too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool, man. Like I said, I like Loco. We had an idea for a backstory that Mike and Brian had been cooking up, and they kind of had mentioned it to me, and I was like, "Yeah, that sounds pretty cool." And so it was on the fence for a minute, and they kind of switched it up.
I have to get Mike's here a little bit here.
Say again?
I have to get Mike's here about this.
Yeah, you should definitely hear what he has to say about that one.
I was just curious, throughout your career, what is your favorite IP that you've worked on, and what is like the one dream IP that you've always wanted to but haven't got the chance yet, like in an official capacity?
Hmm. Let's see. I think you know, it's weird. Like when I was younger, and I was at WildStorm, I was I got into WildStorm. There was always my dream to be at that studio. And you know, I got into that place at let's see, how old was I? I was like 34, 35, something like that. And the dream of working there happened when I was 17, you know, to like 24 or 25. I thought, man, one day I want to work at Wildstorm with Jim Lee and all these other guys. I was always impressed at the roster of artists he had there, you know, back in the day. It's so many amazingly talented people in that place that it was just like it was like a all-star league of comic book artists. And I was like, man, to be in that roster would be amazing. And so when I finally did end up there, you know, it was still an amazing feeling, but I was a much older person. And I think, you know, much like anything in life, like it's a constantly evolving thing, you know, where things aren't going to stay the same. And, you know, I was an older guy, my taste had changed a bit. Um, I wasn't reading the books I used to read when I was first dreaming of being a Wildstorm. And I was still kind of into a lot of the superhero comics, but I was also starting to kind of look to the side of like other stuff of like, well, what else is there? You know, and once I got to Wildstorm and I saw some of the guys that would come through there during Comic Con, because the offices were so close to San Diego Comic Con. Well, not that close. They're like, I don't know, 20 minutes, but anybody from out of state would always, and that was part of DC Comics, would always make a habit of visiting the WildStorm offices, and it was just legendary because Jim Lee's one stuff. And you'd see like this who's who of like just badass, amazing artists, that would come through there and share, their work, and and I was like so impressed with them, and just in what do you call it? Not inspired, but I was intimidated by some of these really talented artists coming through there, and I was like, man, and they were so like excited to draw these characters, and they were just so horny for it. Like they were all about this character, Batman, Superman, whatever they had, and it was like those people were about it, and I was like, I just don't have that energy that they had for these characters, like a younger me, maybe yes, but like I coupled that with the idea of how talented they were, and I was like, wow, like these are people I'm going to be competing with for jobs. Like, is this, you can feel it, the energy from them about like their love, their passion for this thing. And it's like, and in a lot of ways, it came through in the work, the way they showed and carried themselves. Like, you can see, like, oh, they really love it's like, you see a page or you see some comic book art and you go, like, man, this guy really loves drawing the hell out of these cars, or this guy really loves drawing like really hot women, or whatever you want it to be, so be it. Like this guy really loves drawing muscly dudes. Like you see it. Like some people just really, they just go for it and they're really into drawing that shit. You know what I mean? And I was thinking like I do not have that sort of like passion for these particular characters like that, and it's like, uh-oh, I'm in trouble because like I like them okay, but like I don't even read some of these books. Like, how do you still feel excited for Batman? Or you know what I mean? As an older man, like I get him, like I get the idea of the character, but like there's only are you gonna draw him better than Jim Lee or Jock or these other guys? Like, do you really think you got a better Batman in you than those dudes? And it's like you have to really figure out, well, what is my angle? What am I passionate about? And I started finding myself looking at the characters that were less popular or B-list or C-list characters and on the fringe that hadn't been tapped into yet or haven't given their moment, where maybe that would give you an opportunity to really make your own or flex on with this character, to put a unique spin that hadn't been done before, because so many of the bigger characters that already had so many people been thrown the keys and they just went off on that character. Um, and then when I met Brian and started working with those guys at Coffin Comics, it was like a it was like a like a wish fulfillment, where I came into this situation where, like, here's this character, La Muerta, nobody's ever heard of, and here's your chance, kid. Like, you're talking all that shit about wanting to start from scratch. Well, here you go. Like, let's see what you can do with that. And to me, I think it's really exciting and exhilarating to, like, take something like that and have people enjoy it. Like, to have a character that is not as popular as some of the Marvel DC characters and have people still appreciate the stories and who the character is, and your depiction of it is so much more rewarding to me than getting to draw a character I've loved since I was a kid, because I still love those characters I grew up with. I love Mr. Miracle, I love Batman, but in a lot of ways, like I am a different person than the kid who fell in love with those characters, and like I kind of view things in a different way, and I don't know that I could draw a badass Mr. Miracle or Batman in the way that somebody else could. Maybe given the chance, who knows? Given the story, maybe there's something I could do. But in the end, it's like drawing these characters like at Coffin, the focus becomes on, well, you sink or swim on the ability of what you and the creative team can do, and it's so fulfilling or satisfying to take this completely new thing and present it to readers in a way and have them enjoy it just as much as one of those other characters. And so to, I used to not feel that much about it, like, I was just kinda like, "Whatever, I'm just drawing these pages," but when I started seeing people respond to the character or, the stories in a way where I was like, "Oh, that's so cool, I really love that they are digging that," and it started I started to see the potential to really build on that, and I got really inspired by, I don't know, the world building Brian does and the maverick, indie comics approach to, he doesn't give a shit. He just does his own thing. And I'm more impressed and inspired by that man and how he goes about his business and continues to like forge his own path. And it's the kind of stuff that fuels me to go, I'm gonna do my own shit, or I'm gonna do a Western style of these characters and post these sketches all the time because that's what I'm into, instead of drawing like Wolverine or drawing Silver Surfer. Like every I, everyone's drawing those things, and I think it's easy um, to build an audience or get a bunch of likes on social media because of how you interpret those characters. I think it's harder to take a lesser known or an unknown character altogether and make that interesting enough for someone to go, "Hey, what is that? I want to see that. What is that about?" And with my experience with Brian and Mike, like, I don't know. I'm kind of leaning in that direction now. I love taking a new idea out for a drive and seeing what happens come hell or high water, you know?
I agree that, in the indie world, I mean, I love comics, but I'm definitely more into indie. Well, we don't use it anymore, but I Brian's the one that got me into Kickstarters, and the first Kickstarter I backed off anything of any campaign was La Muerta, the 3rd La Muerta.
That's
'Cause I got into
cool.
Coffin in 2017, I met Brian, I bought the first 3 Coffin like this were out, and then he gave me the coupon, I got the 2 La Muertas. I think I met you,
Mm.
like, 2, 3 months later, me and my son saw you at the first, it was Comic-Con Revolution in Ontario in 2017.
Oh, that's right. What were you doing all the way over there?
Because my kids live in San Diego, they live in Rancho Bernardo, Army,
Oh, okay, okay.
but
Are
yeah,
you going to are you going to Comic-Con Revolution again this year?
when is it? Is it still May or
Yeah, it's in May.
probably not, but I'll try to make it happen. I'll try.
That's so funny. Yeah, I remember you coming out to that show. That's so interesting. So you're in El Paso, yeah?
Yeah, awesome.
So when you go to a show that isn't in El Paso, do you go to the one in Dallas or Houston?
I've never actually, the only East Texas show I've been to, I think, was 2017. It was Alamo City in San Antonio.
Oh, what'd you think of that one?
That one was awesome, but it was actually, that's the one thing I wanna ask you. That one was, like, super, like, celebrity loaded, and that was cool
Mm.
because I got to meet, well, as a kid, 2 of my favorite movies were Masters of the Universe and Willow, so I got to meet
Oh,
with
shit.
Val Kilmer and Dolph Lundgren.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that was a cool thing, but and they had, because it was, like, a week or 2 after the Guardians of the Galaxy came out, or whichever one came out in 2017, and you had
Mhm.
Batista and the girl that played Nebula right there,
Oh,
and
wow.
but these are some high-end photo ops, but, I mean, high-end, autographs and stuff. So what I wanted to ask you earlier was, when you go to a Comic Con like that, how do you, as a comic artist, is it hard to thrive in the environment where people spend their money on the meet and greets and maybe not so much on the art or the comics?
Yeah. I used to man, I used to like, I used to let it bother me more, right? I used to be like, "Oh, that's crazy." And it it was earlier on when it first became a big deal where you saw it everywhere, and it was like I would go like, "This isn't even a Comic-Con. Why are they calling it a Comic-Con? This has nothing, there's no comics in this thing," you know? And it's like, then I realized, like, you know what? That's just the nature of it, and, I think, in pop culture terms or in the audience or the people attending those shows, they don't care what it's called. They're gonna go to whatever it is called. They're not hung up on the name of it, you know what I mean? And so I started realizing like, okay, well then this is on me to do my due diligence and research the shows that I think are a fit for what I'm trying to do. And I think that's a thing where back in the day when I was in between working for WildStorm and just starting at Coffin Comics, I was probably more excited about doing any and all shows. You know what I mean? I was doing fan art for the sake of fan art because I could pay my bills doing fan art. And I got it. I mean, I get it. But at some point, I started to move away from that because as a early breaking in just getting started out artist, doing fan art and doing conventions, doing fan art is a really great way to establish yourself and, create interest in your work. But at the end of the day, you have to eventually pick a direction and go all in and on something, because you need to limit the number of people you're competing with for, A, attention, B, money, and creating a brand or an identity for yourself. And I think, when I started to understand it in those terms, it started to become so much more clear to me, and I started to see conventions in a different from a different perspective, and I just I veer away from a lot of fan art only because, uh, I don't have a problem with it. I was doing it for a long time making money, but, like, I think, I wanna limit my greedy ass wants to, eliminate as much competition as possible, so if I stay away from drawing Wolverine or Optimus Prime or, Deadpool, then I will be competing with fewer of those people all doing the same thing. And, now if I could find, some sort of unique perspective or an angle that reflects or showcases my gritty, dark art style, and if I can have good taste about how I present it, I might even elevate myself in a way where I'll stand out amongst all these people doing the same thing. And when you start to have that kind of approach, or when you start betting on yourself in that way, uh, you'll be much happier with the results when they turn out in your favor because, you'll be designing your work and your career around the idea of something that's almost evergreen because it's something that you're not looking at, "Oh, well, who's the new hot character this month that I need to draw for conventions?" It's more about like, "Well, what am I into now? What kind of shit do I really enjoy, putting my own spin on?" And, people can they gravitate towards the things they like, and if you have a very specific kind of niche that you fill with the look of your stuff, you're gonna have more people gravitate towards you, slowly. There won't be the general fans who just want a little of everything, but you'll have more focused fans that will probably come visit you at every show, and so
Go
I've
ahead.
changed. Exactly, so it's like I've changed my perspective, my attitude about it, but it's a gamble. You don't know if it's gonna work. Sometimes you'll try stuff and maybe it doesn't fly, and then another time you try something, people really like it. But at the end of the day, it's like you have to eventually settle in on something and go for it?
Now, you said you do less cons these days, so what is, like how many conventions you do in a year? Like, obviously, you do Swarm Fest every 2 years, obviously.
Yeah.
You Comic-Con Revolution, that one's well, it's not local to you, but it's pretty close, right?
Yeah,
Couple hours?
it's about a 25-30 minute drive. I stopped doing shows for a little bit when I was doing a lot of coffin stuff, and normally, like, I don't sell prints or anything of coffin-based characters. Like, I don't have a banner behind me with La Muerta or anything like that, and it's just my choice. I feel like I love working at Coffin. I love Muerta and Lady Gunfighter, and, I'll always be grateful to work with those amazing people that Brian and Mike are, but at the end of the day, like, I don't own those characters. Those are not my characters. I'm the regular artist on those books, but, like, if something became of those things, if they turned them into movies and toys and, whatever, like, I get no stake in any of that, and it's like, I'm not complaining. It's just that's the nature of the business, and, like, at the same time, I feel weird, like, trying to sell prints of this thing that I don't even own, like, hey, it's like it's sort of like the fan art thing. When I started to see it for what it was, I started feeling a little weird about, like, why am I even drawing these characters? I have no right to these characters. I need to this is, this is weird, and of course, I didn't start off that way. I mean, I was drawing whatever anybody liked because I wanted their attention and I wanted the money. But at some point, I evolved and decided, like, let's move away from that and, like, let's develop our own little thing. And so, for I don't know, the past 5 years, I just stopped doing shows because I didn't want to do fan art and I didn't want to have prints of characters I didn't own. And I'm like, "What the hell am I doing at this show?" Like, and I only in the last 2 years started selling my La Muerta original art pages, because I used to keep all of them. I had, like, at that time, I had like 8 chapters. Each chapter was 48 pages. I had all these reams of folders of just sitting in this file. And I'm like, man, this I need to start doing some of this shit, you know? And so like once I started selling them, I started considering doing shows again. And so I started to beef up a lineup of prints and stickers that are based on concepts that I have kicking around in my head, like Victorian Gothic looking ladies that are kind of badass and villainous. I'm starting a series of prints of that idea. There's something about the Victorian theme, at the Victorian era, I should say, where it kind of reminds me of wrestling in that it was like overly dramatic with the way that they dressed, and it was like it was such a contrast with their the way they were because they were just so conservative about their thoughts and how they approached everything, but then their constrained, tight, super weird outfits were like almost a contradiction to how they were feeling, and it was like I thought, what if you had these really badass Victorian-looking women that were really villainous, and maybe they're like a gang of them, but they were all dressed to the nines, and maybe these outfits reflected a little bit of their personality in the way that there was like a filigree or like some kind of really cool-looking ornamental aspect that has skulls or something to reflect their evilness in these outfits. And I was like, oh, dude, that sounds awesome. I'm gonna go all in on this idea.
That's like a
Yeah,
Mean Girls, Cersei Lannister kind of vibe you got going on there.
yeah, so I started approaching the idea, and I've started a print series with that, and I've got 3 prints and some stickers based on that idea that's just kicked me off, and I also had another idea for a print set, which is I never really saw anything really Halloween themed that I wanted to do something with a jack-o'-lantern vibe, and I call him the Gourd King, and so I have a print set that I've started of that and some stickers of that, and so now, with that, armed with that, and I'm slowly building up a stable of images that I'll carry with me at shows, I'm more excited to try and be doing more shows again. And so, knowing that I have these prints of, license free or characters at my own concept, I'm really excited using the philosophy of the indie creator where I'm like, I'm gonna fall on my face on this shit, or I'm gonna have people love these. I don't care. I'm gonna try it out and see what happens, come hell or high water. I'm excited to try and do shows again. I wanna go as many places as I can. I do Japan normally every year. Beth and I
Japan,
go.
yeah, I remember.
Yeah, we go to Tokyo Comic Con, which is really cool. It's a really weird show because
So you say we, so you and your wife are both artists. Let's so people
yeah,
know.
Beth used to be the colorist of a book called Lady Mechanica. She used to be the colorist at Aspen Comics working on Soulfire. Um, and she has an all ages book of her own creation called Grump that she is working on book 2 for. And so, as indie comics creator, she has her own kind of book and her own entity of, how she displays stuff at a show. It's got like a vibe to it. And so, she and I both are kind of doing the indie creator thing at shows. And I've only now recently built up enough of I guess, number of images and stickers that I feel really excited about to try and pursue more shows again. And so, Tokyo is one of those shows we do. That's in December. We've been doing that one for about 7 years. And the weird thing about that show is like, much like everyone here is into anime and manga, this particular show, Tokyo Comic Con, is a very Western show. And by that I mean they have so many like celebrity actors from movies and TV shows that are comics based. And there's a lot of Marvel and DC artists represented at the show. So it's interesting, when I first went to that show, I thought I was gonna be running into a lot of manga artists and really get a cool look at a bunch of manga art. It's like, no, not really. It was literally almost like if you transplanted a show here and just put it in Japan, and now instead of in English, everything's in kanji. And
Yeah, I've
so
noticed like, well, I live in El Paso. There's
yeah.
one company they have several cons. There's El Paso. There's Las Cruces Comic Con. They have anime one, but I noticed in our events and other smaller cities too. A lot of the celebrities, it's a lot of manga voiceovers, a lot of animators, that kind of stuff. That seems to be
Mhm.
really popular right now, even in the regular Comic Con.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, I think, it's inverted. In Japan, they're all excited about the Western comics, and then here, everyone's really into the anime
Everyone's
and the
really reading
manga.
them.
Yeah, I guess so, It's really it's interesting, but yeah, so we do Japan once a year in December, we do WonderCon, in March, and I'll be doing Emerald City as well this
I've heard
year.
that one's really good. I've never been.
That's a cool show, man. That's a really the artist alley for that show is really impressive. I love to walk around and just see all the different types of art and creativity involved because it's much more than just like Marvel and DC artists, and there's plenty of those for sure. But you can be like it's pretty humbling to see the amount of talent that comes out, and it's neat. Everyone has a unique vibe to their table displays, and the branding is always on point. Like you really get some really cool, thoughtful ways people present themselves at these shows, and it's like I don't know, man. Like conventions nowadays are almost they're not like they used to be. You know, you just pull up some weird banner behind you and sit at an empty table and wait for people to come talk to you. Like now everyone's got some interesting way to display their art on tiered like little display cases with interesting lighting and like it's just it's a spectacle for sure, man.
Now, would you do Tucson Comic Con? 'Cause, I know Brian owns like a good,
I've done that.
I want to say half of
Yeah.
them.
I've done that one time, he had me out for it. Tucson is always cool, like, they do such a great job with, um, how they do that show, like, it's really well presented, like, the way everything is set up and easily accessible, you know where you're going, there's enough signage and times for, "Oh, when does this happen?" or "Where is this room?" or
There's plenty of walking space too. Like it's huge, but not
Yeah.
even cluttered.
Yeah, they have a really cool way of going about their business, but Brian and Francisca, they're like that about everything they do. They have a very they're just doers. You know what I mean? They're really good at like projects and completing unique projects and just doing another one. And I think that makes them creative and I don't know, they just have a really cool vibe and brand to how they approach that kind of stuff.
Yeah, they'll build a new headquarters and say screw it and build another one 2 years later.
I was just thinking that, dude. Yeah, for sure. Like, I can't believe they're doing that. Like,
I didn't
it's
make the HQ tour this time 'cause we didn't arrive in town till like 6, 7 o'clock at night, unfortunately. But I heard all kinds of
mm,
good things, and let's
you had
see.
been to that one though, right?
But I'm sorry, say
You've been to that. You've been to the one that they're
not
currently
the brand new
leaving.
one. I've been to the previous one and the original one. I've been to the
So
original one many times.
you've been to two of them, right?
Yeah, 2 of the 3.
Okay. So the second one with the downstairs bar area,
Yeah, that was crazy. That was awesome.
yeah, that was a really cool place, dude. And to think, I mean, what they were there for just I don't know 2 3 years or something like that, right? Yeah, dude, like I said, they find a way to inject such a unique creativity to all of their little projects, and, it's always, like, remarkable, like, you're like, "Wow, I can't believe you guys did that, like, that's crazy," and they just finish and then they do another one.
No, they're like DIY on steroids. I mean, everything, the
That's a
YouTube
good way
videos,
to describe it.
the launch videos, everything. The warehouse.
That's why I think that's why they inspire me so much, man. Because, like I said, like, early in the La Muerta journey with me, I didn't know him or, uh, Francisca very well, and once I got to learn more about them and ask them questions of, "Well, how come you did this?" or "What is this?" and I'm like, oh, wow," and then I was like, "Oh, shit, that's crazy," and I started seeing, like, how much effort they put into their the way they go about their business, and it's like, "Oh, shit, like, that's really cool," and it's like, it kinda, like, opened up this weird part of my brain that was like, "Okay, so they're like comic book entrepreneurs," and I was like, "They're like badasses," you know what I mean? And, like, it's rare to see someone with that kind of creativity and attention to detail and, uh, on schedule, like, they are very timely about how they hit everything, they
Yeah,
execute.
they're super driven. Like I said, and Brian's super driven, super creative, and like Fran is super business. Super on point.
Yeah,
So
they're like thunder and lightning, dude.
definitely.
Yeah, they're really cool, and like I said, I feel like well, I didn't say this, but I will say it now, but I feel like they don't really get their props for whatever reason. I feel like the comics industry is just asleep on them or I don't know what, but, like, those 2, man, you think about, they were around in the late '90s with their stuff, and they've found a way to come back bigger, better, and stronger, and they're quietly just doing whatever the hell they want, and nobody seems to bat an eye. You know what I
I
mean?
thought the craziest thing and what I loved the most about him was, like, with the whole Coffin launch, I'm like, they did super it went super indie and then to the
Hmm.
max, and they cut the middleman, and that's it's
Yeah,
like, that
even
was the most
that.
outlaw move ever, and I love it.
That's dude, that's a crazy thing. I mean, you think about it, and it's like, you figure a creator who's been around for that long isn't making moves like that, but they are, and they're always like not reinventing the wheel, but they're constantly finding a way to stay fresh.
No, they're
You know
playing
what I
like
mean?
Mario Kart at this point, you know, where
That's true, man. Yeah, they just they feel it feels like they always have a passion for what they're doing, and they never feel like they're stagnant on any of that shit. You know what I mean? They're always I'm not cutting edge, but they're always keeping it exciting and interesting in a way where you're like, oh shit, that's cool. And like I said, to me, as a person pursuing this path that I'm on, where I want to entertain people with new stories about new characters, and the challenge in all of that is it's daunting, but then you look at what Brian's that's all he's ever done. You know what I mean? He's always only ever done what he wants and tell his stories and work on his characters, not anybody else's characters, and he's just living the dream, dude. I think that's amazing. So yeah, he's a huge inspiration.
definitely. It's funny of this habit, like, I was telling my girlfriend, she just got into comics. She read the first Coffin Lady Death, Chaos Rules, right, like, maybe a few days before Swornfest.
Oh wow, what'd she think?
She loved it, and then that night, we came back Monday. We go to dinner on Monday night, and I could fall asleep. She wakes me up and goes, "Oh, I just read the first 2 Muertas, and they're good. They're awesome." I'm like, "I've been telling you,
Oh,
give me
that's
a book."
cool.
And now she's
That's
into
really cool.
Muerta Lady Death. She's reading Zombie Tramp, and that's her thing now. So
Yeah,
I'm
Zombie
getting
Tramp.
caught to
That's another one. That dude, he's doing his own thing too, right?
yeah.
Yeah, that's cool, man. Those kind of it's neat seeing guys like that just kind of blazing their own kind of trail, and it's exciting to me because I mean I don't do those kinds of books personally, like I mean obviously, but to see those kinds of people like making a living and thriving with their own creations in a time when there's I guess his stuff I wouldn't say is in comic book stores, but I think what he does, what Brian does, it's all super
They're
inspiring
both world
because
builders.
yeah, exactly, man. And you see that they're just doing it their own way. They're not trying to copy anybody. I think that's cool, man. That hats off to them for making that kind of shit possible, and it inspires me, man. I like that shit. That's cool.
Yeah, so I was about La Muerta. What I did too is like, you guys put out one, about 64 pages. How long is the average book now you guys put out?
The books I work on, they're 48 pages
48.
a book. Yeah, sometimes I guess it depends, but some of the other books can run a little longer. I'm not real sure. I think I'm guessing here, but I think one of the Lady Death books was up to like a 50 something page count at one point. It just depends on the story, I think. Sometimes those guys were like, fuck it, let's go for it. So it just probably depends.
But I think the fact that we get every few months, or in La Muerta, in the case we get once here, but we get one like 48-page book as opposed to like, 6 issues or whatever. I mean, it makes the
Yeah.
story more digestible.
Yeah.
Love that I
Do you
can
like
read
the
the whole
48
book in one
pages?
shot. Say it again?
Do you like the 48 pages at a time?
I love it, yes.
Oh, that's
'Cause
cool.
you get the whole story in one shot. It's like, "Oh, I missed oh, crap, I didn't go to the store this week. Crap, I'm missing number 5," you know? That's not the issue.
Yeah, right, right. Is there something is there something you would want to see in happen in the La Muerta universe?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Is
Maybe
there a
1 book a year,
direction
maybe.
you'd like to see 2 books a year?
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
What
I'm sure
do
a few
you
of our friends will back us up on that one.
Oh, for sure, yeah, I mean, I that's partially on me too, I need to I will do better on that too, but, like, is there something you think would make for good story or you'd like to see them revisit or, direction you haven't seen?
I like what you're doing with Maria. I like, as you get old, as the book goes along, we see more of Maria the woman, not just Maria the
Oh
not just La Muerta.
oh,
I
that's
like
interesting.
I like how you're doing that. So I guess, maybe more backstories, more antidotes, more I'm not
That's
saying less
interesting.
Lamorta, but definitely get a little more Maria's, like, so we get the Bruce Wayne side and the Batman, let's we can, you know
That's that's a great yeah, that's a great note. I'm gonna mention that.
thank you.
Yeah, that's cool. I think in some ways it's always nice to see a little bit more personality from the character, to know who you're rooting for, kind of.
Because when I first read it, I was like, "Okay, this is a Mexican twist of Crow meets Renegade," 'cause I think Renegade, Lorenzo Lamas with the motorcycle, and then,
Mm-hmm.
obviously
Mm-hmm.
with La Muerte, it's basically I see it's a lot of Crow, but with, the Mexican, theme with the Santa La Muerte and all that,
Mm-hmm.
but
Yeah, I could see that. Do you like seeing the character in different settings, or do you like her to be mostly in her like city setting?
I like both. I mean, because the last few books into the crossovers, you see them moving around quite a bit, different cities,
Yeah.
that's cool, but I like the traveling. Like I said, I
Mm-hmm.
also like her in the lair with the dudes chilling, with Alfredo and Loco, and
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I could see that. Yeah, that's cool. They've built something up there, and then I like that. I also think in some ways it'd be cool to try different things with the character too. You know what I mean?
well, when you
Uh,
introduce Loco, you we got a little bit of backstory about how they grew up as, like, sisters or semi-sisters.
oh, you're
No, I'm
talking
sorry, not
about
Loco, I'm sorry, sorry.
Rojo. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That was really cool, right?
Yeah, but I like the little
Um,
glimpses of the past, like, you know, what made her who she is,
yeah. Rojo's a fascinating character because, like I said, it feels like she really took off,
Yeah.
and it seems people really dig that aspect of her. She's also her personality, I think, is something that is unique. One of the things I was talking to Mike about, and he really liked was I don't. I mentioned, I feel like we could be using more of Mama Z.
Yes, exactly.
So we had kind of kicked around some ideas about a Mama Z one shot, and he really liked that idea. Because I was imagining, well, you know, fans love this character, and she's kind of a twisted, evil looking, almost like a La Muerta. And I was like, how could we do something with that?
Well,
And
she's more
so,
like this, like, evil supernatural Queen of the South type,
yeah,
like a supernatural godmother, if that makes sense.
yeah, and so in talking to Mike, he was like, I was giving him some ideas about it. He's like, oh, that sounds fucking cool. And so, who knows? I'd love to. I mean, it's really on me to just get going and go faster so that I can get more. I think they would give me. I could definitely do 2 books a year that I need to. After this book, I'm gonna be kicking it into high gear
Hell
so
yeah.
that Let La Muerta comes out a little bit more timely. You know.
Another thing I thought of too, not and this isn't for the book, but, I bought a prints from you. I don't know if it was the prints or the originals I bought from you. You gave me a little Gomez Gang sticker. I have it on my laptop.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Maybe
yeah.
get patches for that so at Swarmfest, we all rep our Gomez Gang.
Oh, that'd be cool. Yeah, I
Get
should
some
make
rock
a.
those.
I'll. You know what? That's a great idea. I will look into possible patch for the next Sports Fest. Having a
Hell yeah.
Gomez gang. That would be really cool. That's a great idea.
I
I
get at
like
least
it.
one. I get dibs. Like, I get at least one.
That's right. For you coming up with it, I have to give you one. Just be like, this one's for you, man, because you came up with the idea.
'Cause when I remember the first, Theme Fest, actually, I would never call myself a cosplayer, but I would try to, buy clothes that kind of resemble the character I used to do, Casey Jones, and I was like,
Oh, that's cool.
what if I could throw" this is 20 l early 2019, 'cause me and my buddy Lawless, we go to comms together, we would go to Albuquerque Comic Con in Santa Fe,
Okay.
and I've done Tucson a couple times, but when we saw Brian, I was thinking, "Well, could I throw together some kinda loco cosplay or something?" And then Brian's like,
Ooh.
"Make sure you guys have the vest. You guys have your vest." I'm like, "Okay, disregard, we're wearing vests." So then fast forward, he's like, "When are you gonna make another vest?" Law was bugging me, and then I bought some of the Morta patches, he gave me some of his, and I pieced out one the other 2 years ago, and I've
Oh,
added a
that's
couple
cool.
patches since, but yeah, just now I got character specific, La Muerta all the way.
Oh, that's awesome. See, yeah, see that I was curious because like you were saying you were gonna do like a local kind of cosplay thing.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think we need to see more of him too in the books. That would be kind of nice. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Bring him back. Um, I know he's made an appearance or two in the Lady Death books, um, but we haven't seen him for a hot second in the La Muerta stuff. Yeah, dude, that's awesome. I definitely have to
Like
keep an eye out.
I know it's probably not gonna bring her back. What was it, Tamora, the jungle one?
Oh yeah, yeah. I think she's around. You know how it is with comics. I don't think anybody really dies, kind of deal. You know what I mean? Um, I
That
think
one straight up had Predator vibes. Like, this is awesome. One.
yeah, that's a good description. I think I could see that. I think it feels like Brian and Mike are always throwing things out there to see what sticks, and then based on reaction, they will then decide on where to carry it. You know what I mean? And I definitely feel that about Roja, like based on how she was received and how things turned out, they definitely wanted to do something more with the character. You know what I mean? I mean, they made toys of her and everything, so I think she definitely had some sort of impact on people. So that's kind of cool. That's exciting when that works out like that. It's that thing that I was telling you earlier where it's like you want to entertain people with these new ideas, and when it hits, you're like, oh shit. So that was one of those moments you see it happen and you're like, oh damn, that's fucking cool. And so that's why we do it. That's why I love doing it, is to be able to create that new stuff that you take a chance on and have someone enjoy it or be delighted by the concept of it and enjoy the story. And so that's my fix. I love being able to make somebody enjoy something like that, you know.
Nah, you're doing a hell of a job, man. Keep it up, please.
Oh, thank you, brother. I really appreciate it, man.
Yeah, I was telling, like I told you, we were texting last week, and I was like, this it's kind of a well, it's not kind of, it is a drug. Like when you get in, when I first
Mm,
discovered La Muerta, you had two books out, and I bought those two little $8 market editions. Now we're buying metal covers and mystery
yeah,
bags and commissions,
yeah.
and
Yeah, it's weird. I think, they need to that well, they probably do, but they need to have, like, the entry level of those books be accessible, which I think Brian does.
well, he
I
does
think they
that
give
at conventions. When I remember at Albuquerque, I mean, he have a plethora, but he always had quite the I guess quite the range of prices.
Oh, that's good. That's really good. Because I mean, there's so many new people. You don't know how many times, like I was telling you before, where I'll have somebody come up to me at a show because I have my original La Muerta art on me, and they're like, "What is this?" And they have no clue. They've never seen it before, but because of the how the art looks, they're all of a sudden generated interest in the idea, and they're like, "Where can I find this?" And I'm like, "Oh shit!" And it reminds me of something Brian told me a while back, where he's like, there's so many times you don't even realize this will be somebody's first time seeing this stuff. So always keep that in mind.
Yeah,
And I was like, "Oh shit, you're right." And so like I try to carry myself or at shows with that energy, or I try to handle each page that I'm drawing like pretend this is the first time somebody's seeing this character, like, do it justice. Like you get one shot to make a first impression with everyone. Like let's go. Let's make this fucking cool. And so it really motivates me, man, like knowing I'm trying to come up or I'm helping these guys, tell these stories that, maybe they're new to somebody, maybe they've never seen these characters, and here's our chance to turn them on to something new that we came up with ourselves. You know what I mean?
definitely. I'm gonna let you go in a little bit. I've taken up way too much of your time, I realize. But one more
Oh,
important question I forgot to ask: what
sure.
would be your advice to an inspiring artist, whether it be a comic book artist or or interior, exterior?
My big thing is just never give up. I mean, I change is like just a big part of everything, and I think I got into this business thinking I wanted to do something, and when I got in, it had already changed, and I realized, like, "Oh, shit, I don't really love those characters like I did when I was a kid, but I still love this medium, and I wanna make the most of it," and, you know, I evolved as a person, my skill set evolved, and the things I've focused on evolved, they changed, so never give up on what it is that you really enjoy doing. Find something you really enjoy, you're really good at, that see people like seeing you do it. Like there's an intersection between something you're really good at and something people will give you money for, and exploit the hell out of it because To get great at it is going to require a lot of energy and time. And I think that's the thing you need to realize is that to be good at anything in life, it's going to take a lot of energy and time to do it well. So find something you love and just, you know, work the hell out of it.
So also, so you talked about your con schedule for the year. What else do you have on the book this year besides Tokyo Comic Con?
So Tokyo was in December. I'm doing
December
Emerald City.
26th. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, 2026. Emerald City is next weekend. I'll be at Emerald City, and then at the end of March, I will be at WonderCon, and then in May I will be at Comic Con Revolution, and then in July I will be at San Diego Comic Con.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I was told, remember, shout out to Shazam. He told me that WonderCon is what San Diego used to be.
Oh, Christopher
Yeah.
Silva.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen him there a couple times. I think he's a LA guy, LA local. Yeah, WonderCon, ever since COVID, it feels like it's been kind of coming back around to what it used to be like, but it's still just not like it used to be. It's getting better. It's getting better.
Yeah. I've never done San Diego. Like, I want to, it's I know you got to get online and register at the right time. So,
It's a spectacle,
what
dude.
did you need to do just so I can say I did it?
Yeah, I think you do it once, you get the idea of what it's about, and but it's definitely a spectacle. Experiencing it, it's ginormous. Um, yeah, there's just nothing like it, dude. It's a crazy thing.
Um,
5 day show.
yeah. Wow. Oh, I thought it was like, oh, damn. I figured it
So
was 3.
Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Wednesday's preview night, but it used to be from 7 to 10, and now I think it's like from 3 or maybe 2 to 9, something like that. So it's like almost like a regular day, Wednesday.
Crazy. Have you ever done New York? 'Cause I heard they're pretty comparable. San Diego, New York.
Yes, I always apply, and I've only been twice. It's a hard show for me to get into as an indie guy, maybe. I don't know. But the times I have been accepted and have gone, it's been great. It's that artist alley to me is one of the best artist alleys I've ever seen, like as far as lineups. Like it's just back to back to back, like just heavy hitters. You know what I mean? Um, yeah, it's crazy. I think one year I saw like it was like Frank Miller, Jim Lee, um, oh gosh, it was like Jock. There was just like 8 like side by side tables of just badass mofos lined up, and that was just one row. Like there was like 7, 8 more rows, and I was just like, oh my God. So it's yeah, dude, it's a pretty wild artist alley.
So about your Victorian thing, you talked about you have prints of your Victorian girls. So,
Yeah.
if it takes off down the road, could we see a Gomez Kickstarter?
You never know. I mean, I think the idea behind it is to create it was almost like the idea came to me as like do you remember you might be too young for this, maybe not. There used to be these trading cards that's called Garbage Pail Kids.
Yeah, I remember those.
Okay, so they had like different like names that it attributed to their character, like oh my gosh, like
I remember Wee
puke.
Wee Willie and Alien Al.
There you go. Yeah, yeah.
They
So
were
that
my friends. I didn't have them, but I remember my friend had them.
yeah, so like their names would kind of like aspire to what they were, like puke Luke, like he'd be like covered in vomit or whatever, right? So the idea was to have like these Victorian themed women with names that reflected, their personality, and almost like not a trading card, but have it so that I'd have like a series of them, 12, 14, 16, a lineup, so that eventually I could just print them out as postcards and you could buy the different varying character types. You know what I mean? And like maybe one would have like she'd have like a scar on her face and carry like a knife. The other one would have like a prosthetic leg made of ivory. Another would be like a heavy set lady, but she's like a real badass. And so just playing up the different proportions and looks that could reflect different types of personality types. You know what I mean?
Now, would these
And
be in
just
person only, or they be on your website, or
maybe a little of both. Maybe for each new release, I could put them up on my website, but then give people a reason to come visit me at a show. You know what I mean? Come get the latest one or see the
Like
ones that I have.
exclusive or whatever.
Yeah, something like that. And but make it so that, again, make it so it's unique and it stands out on its own because no one else would be doing that shit and then be like, who the hell else is gonna be drawing these weird ass Victorian evil looking ladies that almost look like they're like the Injustice League or some shit. You know what I mean? Uh, so that would be me. But yeah, that's the hope, you know?
Uh, Before we take off, anything you want to plug besides Joe Gomez art on Facebook and plug your website
Yeah.
and your mail list and all that.
Yeah, just
Racer Crumbs,
probably
plug that too.
the Racer Crumbs, yeah, it's my newsletter that I've been putting out infrequently. It's not so much, it's more just my experiences I share on there. And just kind of slice of life as me as an artist, things that go through my head, but it's also a way of directly connecting with me and getting it's kind of more entertaining. It's less pitchy. I'm not selling anything on there. It just gives you a little bit more. Sometimes I'll display art that reflects the story told in the newsletter, and sometimes I just share behind the scenes art of stuff I'm working on. It's all obviously visually driven, but it's all just a little bit more background on me. So yeah, it's Eraser Crumbs that you could find on my Instagram handle, Joel Gomez Art. There's a link on there. You just join and subscribe for the newsletter.
Another random question I forgot to ask you. As far as other indie projects and Kickstarters, I know you did 2 or 3 Ninja Witch covers. I know
Yeah,
you've
that's
done at
right.
least 2 for Big Dog Inc. You did Wicked Witch of the West, and you
Yeah,
did one of the Goth Day ones. Do you
yeah.
see? Do you have any other variant covers coming up?
Not recently. I'll be doing another Ninja Witch thing here soon. I don't know if it's a cover per se, but I'll be chatting up with the creators at Seattle. I was supposed to maybe be doing another Conan thing, but we'll see. I haven't heard back
Did you
yet
do a
on
Conan
that.
cover? I haven't seen that one.
Yeah, I did a Conan. I forgot the name of it, but it was like oh gosh, it was of the villain. This is villain with this cobra. Yeah, I did a cover for that. It was
You did the Sub
interesting.
K one. You did Murder Nun. That's right.
Murder Nun, that was a lot of fun working on that with Obscura Comics. They're pretty cool. So yeah, you never know. Might have some other things popping up later on. Yeah, just keep your eyes peeled. I'm sure I'll mention it in the newsletter.
So Brett, sign up for his Breadcrumbs newsletter. Joel Gomez art on Facebook.
That's right.
What's the Instagram handle again?
Joel Gomez art as well.
Okay, both. Oh, one more
Yes,
thing here.
sir.
I didn't plan this, all right, but count
Yeah,
my
yeah.
steps, all right? Count the steps, all right?
All right. 1, 2, 3, 1. Oh shit. Oh dang.
There you go, bro.
That's
For
awesome.
those that can't see, I'm holding up a Lady Death Challenge. I'm sorry,
La
La
Muerta.
Muerta Challenge core with Joel's art on it. Carpe diem.
That's right. That's awesome, dude. I love that. You keep it 3 steps away, yeah?
Well, after what we did to coats, I got to be prepared. So
It's kinda the thing, right? I think a I have one here somewhere. I had the gold one here. They did a
that's the
gold
one I'm
version.
missing is that gold one. I missed HQ that day and they were sold out because I went online. They had Satanas, but not La Muerta.
Oh, the gold, La Muerta one was sold out?
Yeah.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that. Yeah, it's a cool one, dude. It turned out really nice. I like how they printed those up. They look great.
Yeah. Hopefully we get something next year to another La Muerta coin. Hopefully.
That would be awesome, dude. I'm down
Well,
for that.
actually, well, we might be at 24 hours now, but I know the new Lady Death one, you have 24 hours to pledge to get the free coin. We might be at 24 or pretty darn close to it, but
Ooh, did you pledge?
yeah.
Oh, so you're getting one then.
Yeah.
Woo! That's awesome,
Yeah.
dude.
But again, thank you for your time. I took up way too much of it, but this has been a lot of fun. Thank you so much.
Hey, thank you for having me, Michael. I really appreciate it. I appreciate your
Anytime.
support. It was great hanging out with you at Swernfest. And yeah, we'll have to do it again sometime. Maybe you know what? Maybe we could do it at the end of when Lady Gunfighter comes out. This chapter 3 that I'm wrapping up.
Yep.
We could discuss that and maybe I could share a little bit more about what I know about the La Muerta stuff.
I'm down. You know that. Thank you
Awesome,
so
brother. All right,
much.
man. Well, thank you so much for having me and I look forward to catching up with you soon.
Appreciate you, brother.
All right, man.
Take care.
Later.